Okay, hello everyone. So I'm Jo Wu, and I am the site coordinator for the Amgen Biotech Experience Center at Fullerton College. I've just retired from my faculty position there at Fullerton College. I was there for about 33 years. And my goal today is to talk about how I would plan or write for state and federal grant applications. And so I'll just kind of show you my story and what I went through as a faculty member. So feel free to ask questions as we go along. Shahira is here. I don't see her picture right now, but Shahira is the
Yes.
ABE-LA director.
I'm here.
Okay, do you want to wave to say hello? So she will be monitoring the chat for us in case I don't see it when I'm presenting. And then, of course, we're going to be sending you the PDF for this, for the PowerPoint and then the video link to the YouTube channel, okay? All right. So, so again, I was a biology faculty member at Fullerton College, and so I had taught genetics and cell biology, and in 2005, I decided I wanted to purchase my own classroom set of biotechnology equipment and start bringing in more newer equipment of molecular biology. And so, so I wrote my first little grant, about $3,000. And then what happened was, once I got the monies and I could buy some things, and I decided, oh, well, I could do more and I could do more. And so basically, this is a snowball to show you that it really snowballed into a really long process. So over the last 15 years, I brought in about $2 million into the school, and we now have other biotech faculty who are continuing the trend to bring in large grants. So, so in this list, you can see that I applied for both state grants as well as national grants, as well as private industry, private foundations. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of what I went through. So one of the things I want to tell you is that, dreams do come true, at least in my case. And so be careful what you wish for. I ended up getting monies so that I was able to buy lots and lots of equipment, set up 35 summer camps for junior high, high school, community colleges students, brought on monthly hands-on skills workshops for high school and college students, organized a partnership with 4 other colleges in Orange County. Then we set up biotech certificate programs. I already had an AS degree, but we then developed new curriculum for 9 new college courses. Some of them that we're able to articulate to the general universities, as well as specific biotech university programs. And so, so anyway, by doing all this, then we had a need for more biotech faculty. So then we brought on more biotech faculty who then went on to create in-tissue culture facilities. And during this whole time, I was setting up internships, university articulations, having an industry advisory board. So my little wish 20 years ago turned out to be a very, very large project over the long run. So I'm telling you this not so that you get intimidated, but just so that you can see that sometimes what you start with actually can build and build and build and build, depending on your own desires and what your passion is. Okay, so anyway, when you're starting to think about what it is that you want and what you want and what you want monies for, I would say it's an 80-20 amount of work. Planning is about 80% of the work. You really need to have a very, very clear idea of what you want to do, who you're going to serve, and how, who's going to help you, how much the budget is. There's a lot that goes into planning. The actual grant writing can be tedious depending on whether or not you like grant writing, but sometimes it isn't as much work as you think it is, and sometimes it's a lot more work than you anticipated. As a faculty member writing for these big state and federal grants, it is a lot of work. I must, it is outside of your teaching responsibilities. So So I do have some suggestions about what this means. Okay. But why do you even want to do all this work, right? I mean, the reason I wanted to do it was because I was really passionate about teaching my students, hands-on skills, using correct equipment so they get an idea of what the industry would be like, or what just university research labs or graduate school would be like. So I wanted to buy biotech equipment, and it was really to have my students get excited about science because they were able to use real research grade equipment and learn hands-on skills. And at my school, 70% of our students have financial need, and so they have to go work while they go to school. And I would see them working at McDonald's and coffee shops and restaurants around town. And I'm like, well, you're science. I really want you to work in a science lab instead of a coffee shop, right? And you won't get into the science labs unless you know some good skills. So the equipment helps us to teach that. Once they have good skills, not only can they get jobs in the industry, but they can also get into university research labs and do summer research internships or year-round internships. And then, ultimately, we hope to create a whole new generation of science professionals that come after us. So anyway, so that was my reason of why I wanted to do all this work and try to raise monies to buy more equipment for my classrooms. So, so when we think about how we ask for monies, it's very similar to if your child asks you for money, right? What would you ask them? Anybody? Would you at least want to know why they wanted the money? And $100 for a 10-year-old is a lot. So what is it they're going to use it for? What is it? How is it going to impact their life, right? And so I think when you start thinking about this project or this application process, really boil it down to the simplistic concept. Why do you need the monies? Okay, because that's really what the reviewers are going to be asking you. Okay, so think of it as the big question. So I break it down here. Let's see. Hold on a second. Oh, there it is. Okay, so so whether or not you're starting with a very small project or a very large project, it doesn't matter. The planning is going to be the same. The process of the planning is going to be the same. So first, you need to have that project idea, and then you need to work out all the details, okay? And when I mean details, we really need to answer some basic questions, like what is the target goal for this project? And why is it so important compared to all the things that are already going on, okay? Who specifically benefits from this project? Like who are you targeting to benefit? What type of timeline? When will you finish this project? Is it going to be ongoing for 50 years or is it just for the next 6 months? So you need to have a very good idea of what your project entails. And then for the last question is really important for me as a faculty member. I needed to know who was going to actually supervise a project, actually do the work, and then do the evaluation for the project, okay? So if you were trying to go after, let's say, $1,000 grant from a private foundation or a local club, some of these project details can be written up in one page, and it's fairly straightforward, very simple application. And so I do have examples of that, or sorry, the teachers that presented yesterday's webinar has examples. And so please, I would say, go look at that webinar. It is also in my PowerPoint at the very end, but we went through a lot more detail yesterday. All right, so because I was a faculty, I had written applications before for graduate school and for research applications, but when I started looking in the career for grant writing information, I took advantage of every single conference that I ever went to. I would always look for grant writing symposiums, and I would, go go to listen. So I just read and listen to for all kinds of tips for what people have done in the past. And one resource that I think would be very, very useful, no matter if you're writing for small grants or large grants, is this group called fundforteachers.org. They have an online learning center, which is basically an application toolkit. So they give you grant writing tips. They help you with the proposal planning. They kind of give you some scoring criteria for some of the foundations. They give you a place for you to search for different projects that are already ongoing. So if you are a high school teacher, this would be a fantastic place to go to start reading about how to apply for grants. And I would say read everything on this website. It was quite clear and quite good. So I took their top 10 steps or top 10 tips and then put it right here, that when you're writing a grant, you want to take your time. And so what we mean is it's going to take a lot of time for you to plan out, to talk to people, to get help, and then actually finish writing your grant. You definitely need to find a special need, some hole that needs to be fulfilled, some labor force problem or some equipment needs that you want. Here it says avoid ambiguity, so be very, very clear in explaining what it is that you want, and also be very, very thorough. Okay. If writing grants is not something you've done before, talk it out with others, and that will help the process, because you need to be able to explain your project to someone who's not necessarily in the field. So you cannot use lots and lots of jargon. You need to, say it in a simplified version so that other people can understand this. The tone that you use is important. So yesterday we mentioned if you're writing for community grants and private foundations, quite often humor is helpful. But anyway, so try not to be, too all-knowing. Try to write it in a professional manner, but you're asking for help. Okay. So yes, I mentioned last two. Ask for help and junk the jargon. Don't use too much scientific jargon. Okay, so today my focus is going to be on governmental grants, and for governmental grants, in one case, or so for both federal and state, and on one sense, they're very, very good in that they actually will send you or post a RFP. They will actually list very specific criteria of focus that they have for their grant for this year, which may be different from next year's criteria. So you need to read whatever is the most recent grant request. Problem with state and federal grants is that it's very, very competitive. So all the large colleges, sometimes foundations, community groups, and universities are going to be applying for these large grants. And so it's not easy to get them. It's not impossible, but it's not easy. Okay. You want to read very carefully all the guidelines. And when they have guidelines and they say A, B, C, D, you follow A, B, C, D. Don't go to A, B and skip C and go on. You must follow every single portion of their proposal. Okay. So again, I reiterate this. Follow the detailed directions. They are very, very specific sometimes because they're giving you an idea of the slant that they have for that year. So if they tell you, oh, we're looking for underserved students in Native American populations, then you really want to make sure you have something that's related to that slant for that year or for that application. Another big difference between governmental grants versus private foundations is that there is a very, very large component that is all about evaluation. And so the evaluation criteria sometimes for NSF grants, it has to be a research question that adds to the literature for research information. And so sometimes, as teachers or faculty who aren't in that research, or we're not part of that research component, sometimes we don't understand all the criteria. And in that case, it would be very, very useful for you to connect with an external evaluator who can help you with that. Okay, that would be my advice for the first time through. I noticed that governmental grants tend to provide workshops and open office hours where, let's say a grant is going to be, has a deadline in 6 months, NSF will start offering these open office hours or workshops. And they're quite often webinars that are recorded. And so if I'm teaching and I can't attend it, I just go and look at all the archived webinars and try to get information about what suggestions that they have. And usually those are presented either by the program directors, or they're actually presented by veteran grantees who know the process really well. And so they can give you tips on what to do. So absolutely, try to attend the workshops if you can. Something I didn't know when I first got started is that if a project has already been approved and it's NSF or some of the other big groups, they will actually list who won the last grant for the last 20 years, and they'll tell you exactly the title, the name, the scope, the budget, and the addresses of all the and the abstracts of all the proposals. And so you can actually write to someone who won a grant and then ask them for a copy of that proposal. And many people will actually send that to you. And so it's really good to have one successful proposal to read, so then you have an idea of how much details or what types of criteria, what kinds of citations are they looking for. So anyway, that would be a useful tip. And again, if you don't go to the open office hours and you still have questions, the government grants all have appointed officers, program directors, and so you can write them emails or even call them to ask specific questions about your project to see if it fits their focus for that year. Okay, so this one slide had a lot of information. Do you have any questions about this? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through basically the components of an NSF grant that I wrote for, and kind of show you, the things that you typically would put in. And so hopefully that will help you to understand the scope of your application. But the biggest part of the grant application is going to be called the project description. So I think mine was 15 pages, or I think you're allowed 15 pages for NSF. And in that description introduction, you want to talk about any prior work that you have done, because you need to show that you have the credential and the capability and the capacity to do whatever project you're proposing. Okay, so they need to believe, they need to be assured that you know what to do, how to do it, and can you do it, right? So the other thing is, if you're new, like I was, fairly new and no one had applied for an NSF grant in my school before, it's really good to look for collaborators, because if you can get a team together, sometimes you can talk it out, you can talk out ideas, you get better critical thinking, or a think tank coming together. And so it's good to have a team, but you don't want it to be too big, right? I felt that having collaborators for our grant projects usually help us win the grant. Okay, so if I could team up with another school, if I could team up either with my feeder high schools or junior high, or go to county-wide, or going up to the universities, then it was nice to do that. And one of the reasons I did that was because my school did not have grant writers, and but another college in the county had a grant writer, and so the two science faculties could talk over all the ideas and then try to have her grant writer help with that. So that was actually one of the big things that I was looking for help. Okay. But keep in mind, collaborators take some of your grant funds. So just like in my college would take an overhead, but that means that her college also took an overhead. The third college also took an overhead. And so then you are going to have less money to spend. And so that's why you don't want to have too many collaborators, because it will, dwindle your budget quickly. Okay, so so my final tip for this introduction is you basically need to brag about yourself. You need to show in a professional manner that you have the capability of doing this project. Okay, and if you don't talk about yourself, no reviewer is going to go and look up your LinkedIn, profile and see what you've done in the past, right? You have to explain to them, hey, I'm really good. I really do know how to do this, and I can do this. All right. Okay, the second part, second part is project justification. And so again, this is also a very important part of your project description. You have to know why this project needs to be done. Like, is it important? And you want to either show that there's a societal need, or there's a labor workforce data, or that you're trying to target a very specific demographics. And so I wrote in here, some of the assessments that we had, like you could go to your district if you don't know this, your college or your district or your high school, and you can find out, like, what are their standardized test scores of all the science students coming in? What does the graduation rate look like? Where do the students go after this, after they finish your class or your school? And do they go on to get good jobs? And so if your district actually collects a lot of this data, it will be very helpful for you, especially if you're going after a governmental grant that talks about student population demographics, and whether you're targeting diversity and equity or financial need, any of those, you want to have data to back it up. Okay. When I first started, project innovation was a really scary part because I kept thinking, how can I create something brand new? I mean, so much has already been done, but really you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Basically, my suggestion is you go look at what are some of the other successful projects that are being done, maybe in another state and not done in California. And so you bring it to California, and now you've actually, you're innovating because you are serving a new population with this project, okay? But you can also add your own unique flavor. So maybe you slant the project to a very specific chemistry or biochemistry or molecular biology field that was not implied before. So, or you're targeting a very specific student demographics. So anyways, so don't be too scared about the innovation. It was, I just want to see that it's not exactly the same as somebody's doing, 2 cities down from you. So anyway, so take a look at other projects. So when I go to conferences, I'm constantly looking at what do other people do, and can I bring in some of those components into my own program? I think as teachers, we what do I say? We mimic others quite a bit. We borrow ideas because they're good ideas. And so we want to, emulate that. Okay. So for project goals and objectives and deliverables, typically we don't write those in complete sentences, or at least I tend to write them in outline. But it needs to be very clear, very concise, and complete, and trying to explain to the reader what it is that your goal is. Okay, so you typically will need to have some big goals, and then how you're going to approach. What are you going to do? What activities are you going to do in order to reach that goal? So I gave you an example of one of my main goals was I wanted to increase enrollment of underrepresented students in our new biotechnology program. And in order to increase the enrollment, what will we do? Well, we decided for the next 3 years, we're going to go out to the high schools and present about biotechnology, give them demonstrations. And so we call these the outreach events. And we did actually do this. We went out to when we still do outreach to a few thousand students and more every single year. So that was one activity. But another activity that we did was we actually brought students from the local communities, so high schools, junior highs, and we actually brought them to the college so that they can visit and see what type of facilities we have and try to explain what biotechnology was. So anyway, I'm just trying to show you. So I had to have very, very specific points, activities of what I was going to do. So these are what I call the objectives, right? And but you need to be credible that you can actually handle, if you promise you're going to do however many outreach events, you need to have the capacity to do that, right? So it wouldn't be just me as a faculty jumping to every high school, every day for 3 months or something. You obviously need to have a staff, and you need to kind of roll out, write all those down. We were trying to make videos and flyers, and we had open houses done in Spanish. And so again, I had to be very specific about what things we were doing and how we were trying to meet our project goals. Okay. One of the things that you really need to think about is project staffing. And so again, since I was a faculty member full-time and I was teaching all the majors courses, and yet I wanted to do more for the school, and I started doing these projects. So I will tell you that over the time, because I had so much grant monies coming in and I was overseeing these big projects, it kind of felt like I was working 2 full-time jobs. So I think as a faculty member or teacher at a high school, if you don't have the help, if you're not able to hire people, you want to really think about yourself. Okay, so that's why I wrote, be kind to yourself. This is my message to myself if I knew this 20 years ago. So you need to think about who could actually do the work if it's not you. Okay, so would you hire assistants? Would you hire a project coordinator? Who are you going to hire? And how much work would that project actually take? Then once I wrote all this down, then I started talking to people, and then I found out, oh, wait, our classified actually has a union. And so there are very, very strict rules about, who gets hired and who can do the grant activities. And so you need to understand what type of union rules or district rules there are. Okay, at my school, we have very strict rules. And so like I can't bring in a full-time staff person unless I have 3 years guaranteed full-time pay for that person. So make sure you understand the rules, because they will be different from district to district. Do we have any questions so far? No, okay. So one of the biggest parts of the application that you will need to tackle is the project budget. And so as a teacher, I basically just keep a running list of all the things I always want. And so I have a notebook that I know, and all the equipment, the supplies. So I know what kinds of things I want. But at the end of the day, though, you need to make sure you include the overhead, because every district can take a portion of your grant as overhead. And so there are rules, usually NSF and NIH, they have specific rules on how much a university can take. For supplies, I will say that we look at prices now, and typically we write the lowest cost price, and that's what we order. But remember that when you actually get this grant, the end of the grant may not be for another 5 years, and prices go up. So that is something that it is reality that you sometimes will get X amount of money, but then it's not quite enough for what you thought it was going to be. For equipment, I definitely have learned from this. When you get a quote from a vendor, because you're going to include those into your budget information, make sure you include the shipping and the tax. And I always now include a 2-year service warranty in case something happens, because if I bring this larger piece of equipment and it breaks, my school can't pay for it, then it's useless to us, right? So I always actually include a service repair warranty in my equipment. And usually they will only give you 1 year, so you really have to push for the managers to include a 2-year or 3-year warranty. And then the last big portion and last big part is on staffing. So so make sure that you contact your district HR to find out how much the wages are and whether or not they know about next year's increase, because it will increase, or at least it has in the past. And also make sure you know exactly how much that they allocate for benefits. Okay, so sometimes it goes from 35% up to 55%. So just make sure you add all those things. So project budget is usually a huge, not a headache, but it's a big Excel spreadsheet where I actually will have every year, I know, let's say I'm applying for a 3-year grant, I will have a 1-year budget, and then within that 1 year, I'll map out the overhead, the supplies, the equipment, the staffing, any publicity, marketing, printing costs, all of those things are listed in year 1. Then I have a year 2, then I have a year 3, and then I have a final budget spreadsheet. So basically on my spreadsheet, I always have 4 tabs and they accumulate together. And I think if you're very organized in your budget spreadsheet in the beginning, once you get your grant, it will also help you to kind of make sure that you're always on track to how much you can spend that year. Okay, so I would say budgets are a very big part of overseeing the grant project when you finally get that. Okay, because you constantly have to ask the district, how much did I already spend? How much was shipping? Because you don't always know those things. So you have to kind of keep track of that. So at the end, I was always asking, not HR, but the financial department, every month I needed to know exactly how much budget I still had left. And for governmental grants, this is really important. You need to spend it in the fiscal year that you had allocated for, because if you don't spend it, sometimes they want it back at the end of the project. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so typically when you're writing for these $200,000 grants, it's a pretty big project, and you have to really map out when are you going to do whatever activities that you're going to do. And so so there are various graphic organizers. I quite often use the Gantt chart. So I found this little picture just to kind of show you have different activities, and then on the top here you have the dates, and then you kind of make a bar as to when you're going to be accomplishing those activities. And so you can see for mine, this was my NSF grant. And so you can see I broke it up into year 1, 2, and 3, and then all the different seasons. And then I went through and thought about, well, when was I going to actually do, this phase of the project? And this was actually helpful to me. I didn't show you another one, but I actually then broke it up as to, well, is my project coordinator going to be doing this, or is the faculty going to be doing this, or is the lab assistant going to be doing it, or is my marketing team? And so I actually have my Gantt chart to be in multiple colors, so I could see who was actually doing the work and at what time. And that helped me to allocate the amount of budget I needed for that 1 year. So, okay, and to me, the evaluation criteria is a very important part of all the governmental grants that we looked at. And I will say, as a faculty member, this was the hardest portion to try to come up with. So you have to prove, you have to show that you were able to accomplish the project goals that you had described. And so your evaluation plan has to be tied to the project goals. Okay. Again, if you're doing an NSF grant, they want a research question and they want the evaluations to be addressing that research question. Okay. So so my first, I think for 2 big projects, I actually hired external evaluators because I was kind of scared about, was I going to be doing this correctly or not? And the external evaluators can help you to design assessments for showing that your students, had met their student learning outcomes or they change in their behaviors. And now I have examples of these types of surveys that I give to students. We also can collect quantitative data. So this is pretty easy. You just go through your enrollment numbers, you go through your demographics. Typically this is done through the, for us, it's the college research, institutional research department. And I can tell them exactly, okay, I want this number of students in this class or in this major. And I want to know, did they graduate or did they, have they been in college for 4 years or 6 years or whatever. So you want to do that. Then you also want to collect qualitative data. So remember I said I had done all of these summer camps and monthly hands-on skills workshops for just random high school and college students that came in. And so I would actually ask them to write Yelp reviews of my workshops. And then that's my qualitative data that I could pull from to write my evaluation report. So anyway, so evaluation criteria, I would say is very important. You don't typically have to do all of this in a private foundation, or at least I did not have to. But I definitely had to have very, very strong criteria for the governmental grants.
Jo, where did you get evaluators?
You can hire them. So I'll tell you later some examples. Who's asking so I can write you down?
Oh, it was me, Karen.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't want to name them because we're going to post this video, but anyway.
Okay.
Okay. But yes, there are definitely companies out there that do evaluations. Sorry, I should have mentioned that you don't have to hire a evaluator that's outside your institute. You can actually hire evaluators within your institute. So in my college, I could have asked maybe someone in social science or in the institution research to be my evaluator. So they just need to be, not tied intimately to your project. They need to be able to be objective and look at your data and then write it up. And they can help you to design the correct surveys for student attitudes or effective student learning outcomes. So does that make sense? So but I still pay them, right? I still pay a colleague from a different department to be evaluator if I don't hire an outside company completely.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that from our program perspective, the surveys we administer help a lot with qualitative and quantitative data. So this is especially quantitative. So surveys are always very helpful. So
yes, right.
Data collection makes it also easier for the person collecting the data, more straightforward.
Right. And so another thing is, I didn't put this in the budget, but you want to add your evaluators to your budget, because if you're hiring somebody, you have to pay them. So that is expected. Okay, so once you've done this project, and let's say it was, great, or maybe there were some things that did not happen so great, basically you want to tell other people, if you do my project, this is what's going to happen and you should learn from this. And so so the broader impacts is, how are you going to communicate about your grant project, your grant funded projects to the world? And so you can choose, depending on how big of a grant, the bigger the grant, the more I do communications. So, so if it's a small grant, you know, I always do it on the school websites. I always do teacher workshops within either my school, my department, or within the county. You could write articles. I happen to write American Biology Teacher magazine here because many of our teachers coming today are high school teachers. But you know, any science journals is fine. You could write into regional newsletters, whether it's the district, whether it's actually I sent out articles to just the local newspapers to try to, you know, have the community learn about our project. And then definitely make conference presentations whenever you can. So so I've gone to, you know, NSTA, CASE, ACTE. So the more that you talk about your project, then others can hear about it, and then maybe they can emulate. If you're getting an NSF grant, there is a stipulation, like for NSF ATE, you must attend their ATE conference and then tell everyone else that had an ATE project about your project. And so anyway, so we, so our project, you know, was featured in the NSF journal, and as well as conferences. Let's see. One of the things that you need to include in your appendix is letter of support. And so typically you want to get a letter of support, you know, especially with the collaborators that you're working with. If they're not going to be a co-PI, but they're going to be associated with you, you definitely want to have them write a very, very strong template, a very, very strong support letter. And it needs to be signed by, you know, someone in the administrative level. It cannot be signed just by a science faculty at another school. It needs to go through their dean and to their VP or their VP of the grants to make sure that they agree with whatever you're doing. I tend to always give a very early deadline. So let's say if I need the letter in May, I actually tell them it's due in April so that I can keep reminding them, oh, wait, you know, I haven't received this, just in case somebody, you know, has major issues and can't give it to me. I have time to look for somebody else really, really quick and beg a letter. Okay. I typically will write a template of, you know, all they have to do is fill in their name, their school, their number of students, their classes. And so then it's very easy for them to return back the letter. I put in here a note for myself. I think that I got all of these grants is because I used the Amgen Biotech experience as leverage. Okay, so I started with Amgen Biotech, I think in 2000, and by 2000, and I think by 2005, I was already like coordinating the Orange County high schools. And so I was trying to get even more equipment that was specific for my classroom, and it would sit and stay in my classroom instead of just being alone for 3 weeks. But what I always write about is, oh, well, the Amgen Biotech experience would give us free reagents, and they provided us curriculum. And so I would always write about, you know, these are the things that are already in place, and now I'm just trying to expand on that and use it for my classroom or for my students, and I can carry this curriculum longer because if I had my own equipment. So so that would be my suggestions to all of you. You are all here because you're part of the Amgen Biotech Experience family, and so try to use that as a good way to leverage your in-kind support. I always ask the directors of ABE to write me a good, strong support letter as well. And so, Shahira, I don't know if I volunteered you, but anyway, in the past, that's what I've always done to help strengthen what it is I'm doing and how many people I serve. Okay, so.
Thank you. Yes, I'm used to getting voluntold and volunteered.
Sorry, okay. All right. So obviously all of these applications have a deadline. And so I will tell you a bright green tip, the bright green letters there, know what time zone is the deadline. So my husband was famous because he wrote a $1 million grant application and he submitted at 5 o'clock California time, and it was due in Eastern time, and they refused to accept it. So you know, it was a lot of time wasted if you don't get it in. So anyway, the other reason you don't want to wait till the very last hour is because in order to submit some of these major grants for government, they now use Fastlane and grants.gov, and it can be a pain to upload, and it may take many, you know, it may take you a couple of attempts, right? So you may try one day and it doesn't work and it says it's down for 24 hours. So you have to anticipate, okay, you got to do it again the next day. I remember one grant application that did not get submitted because my district administrator did not finish doing whatever they were supposed to do on my application before it got submitted. And so then I lost out on that very large grant as well. So for these big applications, you really need to be working with your school or district administrators very early. They need to know about it. Sometimes they want to be able to read it, approve it, make edits before you actually submit. Sometimes they will do the submission for you. So you need to know who is actually going to do that. Okay. So anyway, so please learn from our mistakes. Don't repeat them if you can. All right, so that's basically the gist of the grant application. And so I just kind of wrote out a little checklist of things that I go through to make sure that I went through every portion of it correctly. I always have an outline of what it is I'm going to be doing. I write that out very early. I really think about the justification of why I'm doing this. I think about the details of the project, who's doing it, what's going to be happening, and how are we going to approach it. I think about the timeline. When am I going to do this? The budget details, who am I going to hire? What am I going to buy? Okay. And then the evaluation, how am I going to evaluate? And then I have to collect the resumes of all your major staff. So that includes any collaborator PIs that you have, or any full-time staff that you're going to hire. You need to have specific resumes of that person. If you don't know who you're going to hire, then I just write a very good description of their job duties, and then I would hire them later once I get the grant. And then of course you want to collect your collaborative support letters. The second thing I wrote here is these are the big headaches that I had for writing these governmental grants, and that was at my school, I had to get approvals before I could even submit the grant application. So at my school, I had to write a district concept paper that was due a month before I actually started the application, and it had to be signed, by the chair, the dean, and at the district level. And so, so find out if your district needs that, okay? And then after you submit your full application and you receive the monies, it still has to go through a district VP of finance, and then the board of trustees has to actually approve that they will accept the money, because they can refuse the money as well. So make sure that everyone that needs to be involved is involved early, so that if an administrator is asking, well, why are you doing this? And they're not really understanding your project, you want to try to convince them before you do all this extra work for yourself. Okay. So you want to have buy-in, basically. All right, so this was the table of contents for my NSF application. And so you can kind of see the summary. It was only one page. There was the table of contents. There was 15 pages of the project description. We had to have all these citations of different literature research that was saying, oh, my internships is valuable lesson for students. Oh, using real hands-on equipment, using equipment with hands-on skills was important. You actually have to find those citations for NSF applications. Biographical sketches. definitely go look at what NSF wants versus what DOE wants versus what other places want. It may not be a standard CV, so you want to follow their criteria for their biographical sketches. Budget, I think you can have lots of pages if you need to. And then you need to actually write down exactly how you are funded currently and what other grant applications you've already submitted or going to be submitting, okay? Because they want to make sure that there's not too much overlap, that you're not asking for exactly the same thing, or if you're asking for exactly the same project or equipment, that one NSF department funds it, then the other one is not going to fund it. Okay, so right, make sure you do that. And they also do this because of conflict of interest, because they have to send out your applications to outside reviewers, and so they want to make sure that there's not a conflict. So anyway, we had at my school, we have a very specific data management plan, and I think that's true now for all schools, that they need to know that you are keeping your student information confidential. So even though you're going to be collecting all these surveys from students, there needs to be a way for the student name to be separated from the aggregate survey data. So anyway, so somebody has to write that up. So if it's not you, then you need to go talk to your IT department to do this, and then you can have an appendix as well. So so bottom line, our application had 55 pages, and this is just from one of my proposals. I forgot to count the other one, but so think about this from a reviewer's point of view. A reviewer, my husband used to sit on these review panels, and so they may be given, depending on the agency, they may be given 5 to 10 proposals, and they have to read all of these proposals, and they have to figure out what is the essence of that project, right? What is their overview? What is the details? What's the budget? What's the timeline? What is the significance of this project? And then they have to write a paragraph about what they think your project is worth, or how they're going to rate it. And then they come to a committee, and so the reviewers come together, and each reviewer presents your application or all the applications that they read, and then they try to convince the other committee members that your proposal is really valuable. And so so if you think about this from a reviewer's point of view, not from you as an applicant, but from a reviewer, you want to make this process super easy for the reviewer, right? You somehow need to make it easy. And so my suggestion is be clear, be concise, be complete, and be correct in all your numbers. And so if you can make it easy and for the reviewers to say, oh, I know exactly what this person wants to do. This is the project A, B, C, D. These are the goals and the activities, and they can do this with X number of money and 5 people hired or whatever. Then it's easier for them to present. Okay. Any questions? Okay, hopefully I didn't go too fast. These are some of the tips I was thinking about. Looking back at what I've done, I would say probably the number one tip is to talk out your ideas with other people as much as you can. So quite often I talk with the current faculty that's closest to me, but then I try to also go to outside people to see, does it make sense from an outsider's point of view? And sometimes I get too close to this my project, my baby project, and so I need to make sure that outside people think, oh, it's important, or maybe it's just some little thing that I blown up in my head. I would definitely say, if you can, set up collaborations. The more collaborations, even if it's just to say, oh, I'm going to be targeting this university and this industry for internship programs, or I'm going to be asking for this industry for help and guest speakers. Anything like that, those are all still collaborations of some sort. So the more that you can set up, I think it really helps strengthen your grant application.
And I just wanted to highlight what Joe said about using ABE-LA, you know, as to facilitate the approval process, but also getting buy-in from your administrators. So I know some of you here already requested a letter of accolades to be sent to your administrator from us, which we have done already. And so we have that option. And if you would like to do that or are interested in finding out more, you can contact me or Professor Wu, and we'll be happy to assist you in that process, because, you know, having your administrators behind you will facilitate everything and have more of an impact. So, yeah.
Yes. Okay, and then another thing we said is ask for help early. It turns out that for NSF, they actually have mentoring programs where you have an idea, you write about it, and then they will assign a mentor for you for the year before you start submitting your application. And so that mentor will kind of guide you through some of these points that I went through. Okay. And then my last big tip is don't be afraid to dream big. I mean, when I first started, which was 20 years ago, I had not ever imagined that my career would come to this point, or that we would build up a huge biotechnology program at the school with so many different classes. But I worked on it in little phases. And so if you happen to be much more futuristic than I was, and you can see that, you know, this is a huge pathway that you're going to build, go ahead and write it all out, kind of sketch it out, and then just put the project into little phases. You know, you'll do phase 1 for 2 years, and you're going to do this, and then phase 2 you'll do this, and then phase 3. For me, I was much more fluid in that dreaming of the program. And so I just started small, and it tended to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And so then I realized, oh, I need to do more. So I need to apply for this project or this grant to sponsor the next phase. So I tend to focus on one little project or one phase at a time. I show that I have really good progress. I really have good results, and then I apply for the next phase. And so once you have good positive results, then it really shows the reviewers, oh, this person actually has the capability of doing what she said she was going to do. And then you build on from there. Okay, so I think those are my main things. Let's see. I gave you some links to some governmental grants. You know, obviously you can look up all of these, and I'm sure there's many, many more depending on if you're going into marine biology or if you're chemistry or whatever. There's lots and lots of departments or directives in the NSF grants. There's also Department of Education. So I worked with another staff member at our school to bring in large STEM grants through the Department of Education. So I didn't go through that today, but anyway. There's career technical education. So biotechnology fits in as a career technical education. And so there's another whole field of grants that you can get that is not just pure science. Okay. I haven't used these very much, maybe grants.gov, but anyway, these are actually resources where they look at lots and lots of grants and they compile them together. For me as a faculty, I just didn't have enough bandwidth to kind of go through all of these. So I just went through the ones that I knew about, but you know, maybe there are more grants that might be useful. So I just gave you some links. Okay, so I'm pausing here for questions. See if you have any questions about what I've covered. I know I went through it very fast, but I wanted to make sure we cover all the big points.
I'm curious as to how many or how difficult it is to get copies of the successful grants from the PIs.
Yeah, right. You just write to them and they will, some of them will send it to you. I mean, maybe you write to 3 and 1 sends it to you or 2 sends it to you, but you'll still see 1. You just need to see 1, I would say. Yeah. Yeah. And then I would choose the one that is most closely fit, that closely fits your project idea. Right. And you can go online to the NSF link that I gave you, or just look up NSF grants. And you can put in keywords, marine chemistry or some of the chemical demonstrations that you mentioned. Put in those keywords and see, what comes up, because maybe there's a professor in Michigan, that's doing it, and it would give you an idea of what, what capabilities they had or what capacity they had. Anyone else? Are any of you thinking about applying for the big state grants or national grants? 1, okay. Yeah, so don't be afraid. I mean, I wasn't a grant writer, and I don't know if it was just luck but we have a track record of getting grants, so I think it's not just luck. You really do want to plan it out well. Yeah. Okay, so there in case you don't know our email or our website, I have it here, and I think the rest of this PowerPoint, oops, sorry, is these are the slides I put together for yesterday's webinar. So if you weren't able to attend yesterday, I would definitely say try to look at our video on YouTube. It's already been posted about the private foundations. And these are shorter applications. They don't need as much work, and they're also for less money. But they're definitely less work in terms of writing the application out. You can get local funding. So yesterday, teachers talked about their community grant applications, like to the Assistance League. And then I had looked up all these different foundations that fund STEM projects. So as a teacher, that might be useful for you. And then I had written out a handout. So sometimes when I do this webinar in person, I actually have a handout so that people can actually go through and kind of start writing out some ideas of what they really want to do and talk it over with people. So this would be the handout that I would do at a workshop. Okay. All right. So that's what I was going to cover today. I'll be here for questions. Reina, I agree. It's a lot of information. I did it fairly fast, but I think it's really important to hear the big ideas of how to plan for it, so that when you start working on it, whether it's big or small grants, that you have an idea of who, what, how, when that you're trying to implement. So yeah. And if you don't have a grant writer, start small. It's perfectly fine to start small and do a little bit at a time, and then once you get the first successful application done or funded, then you'll know how to do the next one even better. And if you don't get funded, you can actually write to the program directors and talk to them about why didn't I get funded, and they will give you some advice, right? So
Dr. Wu, is there anyone that can look at your grant before you submit it? Like, is there any people that can help teachers, maybe look at what you're writing and what you're asking? Do you know if there's anyone that can do that?
So
if we don't have
typically,
anyone at our school?
you absolutely know there's no one at your district, because it's
I
for
don't
high
know.
schools. I would definitely think it's going to be at the district level that you have a grant writer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the grant writer will be the one looking at our actual grant and hopefully give us feedback to see what they think on it.
Yes. So if I was in a high school, I ask my principal, talk over the ideas and find out from him what other schools received grants in your district, right? And who did they work with, and who was the grant writer who was appointed to that? Because the money has to come to the district. It does, and then the district then parcels it out to the schools. And so you need to know exactly who's the channel that it's going to go through, right?
So we have a question in the chat from Monica. What advice do you have for my iGEM team who need funds for registration fees and travel?
Let me look. I saw someone, sorry, let me think. I don't remember now who it is, but I remember seeing something for trips.
So it's fund registration and travel. So
yeah, so I'm wondering, like, do you see there's a Philanthropic Ventures Foundation? So they do a lot of trips. And then I was thinking, I mean, a lot of these educational grants, if they know that it's specifically for an education, you can look at their criteria and see if, you know, if they cover all education or do they have specific ones. So I actually gave you, you know, live links here, so you can just click on it and it will take you to that place to look for it. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. I can't make any suggestions, but
yeah, could be.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll go through your slides and go through all the links and see what we can
Monica,
find.
you're talking about a project related to water purification?
Yes. So the project is a synthetic biology project, but it's related to it's to filter out PFAS out of drinking water.
Okay, so my suggestion is when you start looking and doing the searches within the grant fund, the grants.gov or the NSF, think, you know, think green technology, think environmental biology, marine biology, not just biology, right? Because you want to look at, sometimes the marine biology or the environmental biology, they don't get as many competitive grant applications. So then maybe you'll get funded that way because
oh, great. Okay.
That year, right?
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I had a quick question, actually.
Yeah.
If for some reason you're not successful in completing your project goals for one grant that you received, does that affect your eligibility for future grants?
Yes, depending on the reason why you didn't get it done. So if there was a catastrophe and there was something out of your control, you know, you just explain that. Sorry, I didn't finish with, I'm talking just about grant applications, but really when you get funded, then you have to submit quarterly and annual reports about what progress you've made. And so if there was a catastrophe out of your control, they will understand. But if it's something like, oh, I just didn't bother buying, you know, the equipment I needed, so therefore I couldn't collect any data, so I couldn't do any projects, that, you know, that would be like, oh, they don't have the capacity to do the project that they said they would do. And that would be definitely a problem. For many of the governmental grants, they will give you extensions. So let's say you were supposed to finish by May and you didn't quite spend all your money, they can give you a 6-month extension very quickly. Usually I hear about 6-month extensions. I don't usually hear about like multiple year extensions. Yeah. And if you actually don't do the project that you're supposed to do, you have to give the money back. And that's true for both private and public foundations.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Right, I think, thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. And as mentioned, we will follow up by email and provide you with all the links. And also there will be a folder that has all the information that we provided during the 3 workshops. And so we'll give you access to that folder. So.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wu. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so